Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm sorry about the audio quality, my microphone is doing something weird. Anyway, what I want to talk about today is journalism, which is the best job in the world. But I used to think this job was very intimidating. I don't really know how to explain it, but I just thought it was so stressful and so, demanding and kind of scary, to be honest. I also studied journalism in London, which is a lot more intense than in Norway, where I live. So it's gonna be different wherever you work. And also I work in a small newspaper, which is also so different to lots of other places to work. But anyway, when I was studying, I was like, where do journalists find their stories? How do they come up with all the stuff that they're writing about? How do they find it? And I know a lot of people are wondering that, and I thought I would talk about it because that's one way to kind of make it seem less, stressful, which is really how I thought this job would be. But it's the best job in the world. Like I said, it's so good. And I want other people to not be scared of the job like I was, because lots of different industries, we need more people. We need more people to become journalists. So I want to talk about it more. This week I'm going to post 3 shorts, I think, of a day in the life as a journalist, just to show, how varied and just fun the job is. But today we'll talk about how journalists find their stories. And this might vary just so much compared to where you work. And if you have, a section that you kind of focus on, such as, if you focus on sports, you'll get into the loop very quickly. So you'll know what's going on. You'll just get to know the right people. And of course, they want you to write about whatever's going on. I've been very into the track of culture, so I've gotten to know people who are doing that in that business, and just people who like musicians and stuff like that in my hometown. So I'm just very much into the loop. They of course want you to write about whatever they're doing, so they're gonna let you know. But just remember, this is my perspective. This is the only newspaper I worked in, and it's a local newspaper in Norway. This is my experience. A story that I did very early in my career was an interview with a person who got this leadership role in our local football club, and he's pitched me multiple stories of stuff they're doing that's new, just newsworthy things, because they will do it. They will want this to be written about. They want it to be covered, so they're gonna pitch it. Also, of course, your editor might assign you stories, but a lot of people think that that's the only way you find stories, is that your editor assigns you stories, and that would be boring, I think. But in my publication, we very much just manage our own days, our own schedules and stuff, and we find our own stories and stuff. And I think this is very normal practice. The editor can't, know everything. But of course, a lot of times people will pitch stuff to the editor, and they will then, assign it to journalists that are free, or journalists that usually cover stuff like this. Oh my God, I'm realizing I'm gonna forget. I've thought about multiple ones just as I started talking. I am gonna forget some sources of stories, but that's just how it is. And just like how your editor might assign you stuff, some of your colleagues might get a story pitched to them that they either can't cover, or they might know of someone that is doing something but they're biased because they know them, just a story that they can't do themselves. They might ask you to cover it. So there's always stories going around. Of course, a very obvious one is press releases. Companies and organizations and other things, people, whatever, sending you a press release or publishing a press release that is a story you can pick up. The press release might be enough in itself to make a story out of, or you might need to, get an interview, or at least talk to some people, or go there, do something. It might be a press release about something that's happening, and then you might want to, attend the event, or there might be a press conference, but not really, just them telling you about the stuff. And newsletters is also, a way to pick stuff up. Another huge source of stories is tips. Pitch stories. It doesn't have to be your own thing, but if you know someone who's doing something cool, like if someone's running a marathon for a cause, or if someone's, just, I don't know, anything can be a story. And if you hear of someone doing something special, if you are doing something special yourself, if you're anything that stands out or anything that is newsworthy. And I know people are terrible at judging what is newsworthy, because so many people have a really cool story and they don't think to pitch it. And I know not everyone wants to be in the newspaper, but a lot of people are doing really cool things and they don't think that it should be written about. And honestly, if you think you might have a story, you probably have a story. That's just my experience, because you might think that people just pitch random shit all the time and it's actually just garbage, but that's not my experience at all. People really underestimate themselves and how newsworthy their stuff is. And the cool thing about this, as you start working and time passes, you really build a network, and people keep pitching you stories. They keep you in the loop, and it's really cool. I've gotten so close to my community after I started working in the newspaper. It's so cool because I recently, moved back home. I lived abroad for 8 years, and then I came back to my hometown, didn't plan on staying, but I started working in the newspaper randomly, and I just feel so close to my community because I know of everything that's going on here, and there's so many people doing cool stuff, and I get to, you know, be there to cover it. I get to be there to experience everything, and it's just amazing. I love this job. Also, a lot of the stories that you do about people or about, you know, something that's going on, a lot of these things will stay relevant, or that person will keep having stuff that's going on that's interesting. A lot of things stay newsworthy. A lot of things will come up that are newsworthy. As I mentioned, that football person, they've really stayed relevant because that football is always going on, and football is always relevant. So there's going to be stuff to write about all the time. So just making that connection was good for me because, you know, now I've got another source. Wow, he's gonna feel so honored that I keep mentioning him. It's just a really good example because I did that super early. It was just, you know, another interview, but it's turned into, you know, a good source of information, and that's what you really want. And I've got loads of those now. As you work and as you meet more people, you interview more people, you gain more, you know, connects, kind of, if we pretend it's LinkedIn. You get more, you know, contacts, you get a bigger network, and you just, you hear about more and more stuff the more and more people you know. Also, of course, social media is huge, especially I can imagine if you're working with like celebrity gossip and stuff, like whatever's happening with celebrities, if you follow them or on, you know, Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, like you get to follow their lives and you can pick up like whenever something's happening that's newsworthy. You're like, oh, someone got married, someone, you know, got a girlfriend, someone got pregnant, someone did that or whatever. I know that's a huge source of news for people who write about celebrities, but I luckily don't do that because that does not interest me, and I would not want to, you know, just write, you know, gossip about people or events about people's personal lives. That does not interest me, but I know that's interesting to a lot of people. I am so shocked at how much I use Facebook in my job, because there's lots of these Facebook groups where people post stuff that happens. We cover 7 different municipalities or whatever you want to call them, and that's a lot. So these Facebook groups, I don't know if these groups exist in London, but let's say they did, then it would be like what's going on in Kingston, what's going on in Richmond, what's going on in Brentford, what's going on in Hammersmith, you know, like stuff like that. And then you can find all the local stuff, and that's just such a great way for me to find out what happens in, like, what people are doing, what new things are opening. It's just amazing. Like events that are put on, it's so good for finding out stuff like that. Also, a lot of places make these calendars for cultural events, which is great. Also, a lot of the counties make those, so you know, like, you can pick up stuff that's happening. And I know this sounds like a lot of things to check, but it's not like you have to check them every day. That would be a lot, but usually people don't post stuff like the day before it happens, so you have time to write about it before and after, and, you know, go there. And yeah, I knew I would forget this one because I don't write stories about politics, but you find lots of stories and stuff that should be in the paper in general, in documents from politics, from meetings, and, you know, decision makings and stuff like that. Also in Norway, I don't know if this exists other places, but we have this police log function where it's an app where they post whatever's going on, so you can tick off, you know, what areas you want to get information about, and then you get information of like if there's accidents and if there's, you know, people patrolling or, you know, checking people's speed and stuff like that. So you get, you know, information, and then you can, like, the press can call the police to hear more than what's written in the log because the log is public information, but we can call them and ask for more information. You always get to hear more than what you can write. I mean, if they trust you, that's always the case, not just about crimes and stuff, but it's so funny reading the paper from an outside perspective. Is so different. We know so much more usually about a story than what we are allowed to write, or like there's so much that's off record, and it's just, I love being so informed. Sometimes it could be that a different newspaper, like a competing newspaper, is writing a story about something or someone, and it's something that you really need to cover as well. You know, you hear about it from that paper because someone pitched them and you didn't hear about it, so that's your, you know, source for it, and then you need to write about it, but you need to find a different angle. Usually if you have a competing newspaper, people might read both, or, you know, you just want to find a different angle, and that's a whole different topic, finding an angle for your story. Like I said earlier, people don't know how newsworthy their stuff is, so my last tip is kind of one of the most fun things about journalism, which is just be attentive, look around. You might find a story just, you know, lying about. Last week, we just spotted a sailboat in the port, and it had a Canadian flag. And obviously, we're in Norway, okay, small town Norway, so we don't see that very often. So I walked down there. Turns out that there's this Swiss guy who lives in Canada now, bought the boat, sails with it, has a son who lives in Japan, and his German godfather was also on the boat. So there were 3 different nationalities on the boat. Super cool, like a really fun story. And that was just us spotting a boat that was there. So you just have to like pay attention. This one time I was doing a story on this like summer camp kind of activity for kids, and I went to the local kind of beach, and these people who were going to a festival ran up to me and they were like, can we get a ride to town? And they had tried to challenge themselves to, you know, not spend any money, and they were hitchhiking and stuff. And, you know, I was like, well, if you're gonna get a ride, I'm gonna get a story. And I got my story about hitchhikers going to a local music festival, which was super fun, and they got a ride to town. So don't worry about finding stories, because you will. They will just appear, and you will build a network. You will get to know people who will pitch stuff to you, who will let you know about stuff. More often than not, I have too much to do rather than not enough. I wouldn't worry about it. I hope this was interesting. Even if you're not a journalist or planning to be a journalist, I think it's really fun to learn about how other people work. So I hope this was, you know, interesting to, you know, everyone who watched it, basically. So like I said, I'll post some shorts about my work day, because, you know, I would think it was really fun to watch, and I would hope that I'd watched more stuff like this before I became a journalist, so I wouldn't be, you know, nervous about it, even though obviously it's not wrong to be nervous about entering into a new job. But I didn't have to think that, oh my god, I'm never gonna find stories, because it's really easy to find stories. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Let me know what you think, and I shall see you later. Bye.